The women's movement between the 1960s and 70s was looking to abolish discrimination based on gender in the workforce, at home, and in the justice system, as well as to change societal expectations placed on women in terms of their role as a mother and housekeeper rather than a worker.
Before the women's movement, women felt, quote, deadened by domesticity and were too socially conditioned to recognize their own desperation, as stated by Betty Friedan, author of The Feminine Mystique and activist during the time.
In 1960, the movement began when birth control pills were approved for use, sparking the desire for women to have full control over their bodies, something they were previously lacking.
In 1963, with the women's movement up and running, the Equal Pay Act was finally passed. The Pay Act was passed with the goal to, in theory, abolish wage discrimination based on sex for the same job. In addition to the Equal Pay Act, in 1963, The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan was published. This book questioned the role of women in society and their effect on society, and sparked a revolution.
In 1964, the Civil Rights Act required equality in the workforce and banned discrimination based on sex. This gave women more equal opportunity to work in the same jobs as men.
That's fine. In 1966, the National Organization for Women was founded, otherwise known as NOW. NOW was founded by 28 women at the Third National Conference of Commissions on the Status of Women. Some of the founders were Mary Eastwood, Betty Friedan, and Polly Murray.
In 1968, 100 women protested the Miss America beauty pageant because it undermined women's brain power and ability, and instead instilled the idea of women being seen as objects.
In 1923, the Equal Rights Amendment was first introduced. It was first introduced by Alice Paul and Crystal Eastman. At the time, though, the Equal Rights Amendment was highly controversial. This is because mostly middle-class women were speaking out against equal rights, but working women were worried that the Equal Rights Act would take away their jobs because employers would not want to pay women higher wages. It was, quote, a feminist against feminist movement, as said by historian Judith Sealander. However, in 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment was pushed to be reconsidered. The Equal Rights Amendment was finally passed that year, and it was a proposed amendment to the U.S. Constitution stating that civil rights may not be denied based on one's sex.
In 1973, abortion was legalized for the first time in history. The Roe v. Wade court case debated the moral disapproval many felt towards abortion with the legal freedoms of a woman. Before this court case, the decision for a woman to terminate her pregnancy was in the hands of the government, not her and her doctor. The Supreme Court deemed this unconstitutional, and abortion with restrictions was legalized. This decision saved the lives of many women because abortions had previously been done in illegal clinics, commonly causing potentially fatal harm to the women. Today, abortion is a highly debated topic in politics still, with many wanting to ban it because they feel it is immoral. Additionally, in 1973, women made an average of $15,984 less per year than the average man, making the salary of a man 56.6% more than those of a woman.
In 1975, Joanne Little was acquitted on the murder of Clarence Alligood. This set a precedent for the rape victim's right of self-defense in sexual assault cases. Joanne Little was first arrested on counts of breaking and entering and larceny. But while in the county jail, about 3 months later, the body of a jailer, Clarence Alligood, turned up. Little was gone, but she later turned herself in a few days later to authorities, saying that she had killed him in self-defense to protect herself from sexual assault. In her trial, the issues of women's rights to defend herself from rape and assault came up very often, and this changed the precedent of self-defense for women. However, though women's rights has come very far in the past 40 years, there are still many changes that need to happen. At the time, women were overly obsessed with their body shapes and were often seen as prisoners of the fantasies they got from TV and magazine advertising. Unfortunately, this still continues today. Media overhypes body image, and women get force-fed images of skinny supermodels and weight loss plans. This gigantic focus on body image is harmful and demeans women to nothing more than a body. But because of the women's liberation movement, body empowerment is a big focus for young girls and women today, and media has been criticized for their focus on it. Companies like American Eagle are trying to break the mold and use real girls of all different body types to teach each other to love themselves and feel empowered by their bodies rather than demeaned.